Hey everyone, I'm Mike Vaughn. I'm a critic at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
Hi, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I am a senior critic for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. We have some really amazing titles, but first we have another giveaway.
Yes, I am very excited to share. I am giving away my own personal copy. I'm excited. I like this release so much, but I want to share it. Seasons 1 through 5 of Rick and Morty on Blu-ray. And I will say I am a little bit selfish. I have taken out the digital copy, but you still get all 5 seasons of Rick and Morty on Blu-ray in one nice slim packaging. And all you have to do to win this is just comment on this video and like it and tell us what release from this week that we spoke about you are most excited to check out. That's all you have to do. Just let us know what titles we're talking about that are exciting you, and then you can win my copy of seasons 1 through 5 of Rick and Morty. And you know you want it. It's a great show. So it's a really exciting opportunity.
Yes, and listen, whenever you are famous, that will be worth so much more because it came from you. So there you go.
I won't promise to sign it because people might not like that. Maybe I'll include a note in it and have my signature in there, and then we're good to go.
So yeah, and with that, I think we should just kick it off and
get into it.
Yeah, so we both have some really exciting titles, and my first title is from Universal, and that is Licorice Pizza.
Yay!
And there's the back with the features and slipcover, and this comes with a poster, which is really awesome right there. So now this does have a digital copy that is not in there now, but it will be in yours. And actually, let's show off the poster here. That is pretty awesome. And I have to say, just overall, really nice packaging. And so I will admit, I was not super excited for this movie. I've heard mixed things. I'm a little bit hot and cold with Paul Thomas Anderson, but like I really liked it. I actually ended up watching it twice this week. It's a really kind of engaging, sweet coming of age story, but it also kind of has a little bit of like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood vibe. I don't know. I mean, like I was like thinking if that was like an apt comparison, but it's just with the sort of nostalgia for like old school, like even though it's not really set in Hollywood, you know, it involves like making films and like the industry and everything. I mean, it's more about the relationships obviously, but it kind of had that nice little layer in there. I was actually really surprised to see Sean Penn in there.
Yeah,
that was really cool. I didn't realize he was in this, so that was fun. So yeah, you know, being a newer movie, it looks great. The like upconvert to 1080p looks really nice. The like image is really crisp and clear. You know, again, it's I guess set in the early 70s. So I feel like I know obviously like was born in the like mid 80s, so I don't really know what the 70s was like, but it looked really authentic. The colors really popped, but you know, not in a way that seemed like overly saturated. Everything like looked balanced really nicely. And yeah, so and it has some really nice features, and you know, I always like a release that has a little bit of a little something extra. So
yeah,
you know, it's great. I am really glad that I, you know, pushed myself to watch it because I definitely can see like revisiting it a third time. So
Yeah, that was one of my favorite movies of last year. I was lucky enough to get a screening link to it back in December for my critics group here in Nashville.
Fancy.
And I watched it then, and I've been wanting to revisit it ever since. There are issues I have with the movie. Mostly, there's like one little extra line at the end that I think wasn't necessary. It was kind of like too on the nose for me. But other than that, I've heard all like the online discourse and it's been exhausting, and I've just kind of like pushed it aside and just like accepted that I like a lot of people aren't gonna like this movie. It really connected with me. I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan, so I think it's one of his like sweetest movies, but it's still, I heard everyone talk about it as like one of his lightest movies to date, and it is, but it still has like a lot of like drama in it, like a lot of dramatic like tension to it. And like you said, there's a lot of great cameos in it, and it's just a really great movie, and I cannot wait to revisit it.
Yeah, like I said, it felt very authentic. Like it didn't feel like a very a lot of times when you have like movies like this that are like set in 60s and 70s or even like 80s now and a little bit I guess 90s, which I refuse to say is a period film because that makes me super old, but um yeah, there tends to be kind of like a like rose tinted glasses kind of situation going on with how like the past is portrayed, but I feel like it didn't get too kind of schmaltzy when it came to that, which I appreciated.
Yeah, it it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And one thing I wanted to say about this release, if I remember correctly, I was very impressed because it has like, it's one of the probably rare studio releases that has like double-sided artwork, compared to like a
Oh
normal
yeah.
release. And I was just like, oh, I pretty much never see this on a studio release. So I was impressed.
Yeah, it
That's
was
enough to
throwing me
impress.
because it's pretty much like very similar to the that is yeah. Yeah, like I said, they did a really great job just overall, like packaging wise. It's not slapped together, and I like the little poster that was included.
Yeah, it's a really great release, and I'm very excited to dig into it again and again. And with that, another one that I'll probably want to be watching again and again to get more nuance of it is my first release, and that is the upcoming Criterion release of The Funeral. And I will say apologies for any names I mispronounce as per usual. This is from director Yuzo Atomi. Atami. This is his debut, and uh, I I wanted to say I recently for Christmas got his follow-up feature, which people may be a little bit more familiar with, Tampopo, also from Criterion. But this one, like I said, it's really, really good. It's about a Japanese family where the patriarch dies, and all of the it comes with a nice booklet here. It's like one of the thicker Criterion booklets I've seen in quite a while. Here, but yeah, it's about a patriarch who dies, and all of the family has to come together for his funeral. But while that might seem very heavy, it's kind of like a dark satire, with like some straightforward dramatic elements, but it's a lot of it's just kind of looking at the differences between like the old ways of Japan and the new ways, and kind of the hypocrisy of like certain institutions and what they put you through whenever you're like in the midst of a like grief and tragedy. And there's like some of the characters are hiding like secrets like infidelities and stuff, so it's kind of like this microcosm of a family who are put into like this pressure situation where they're dealing with grief and like preparations, but there's also all these other like outside elements coming in to impact them, like just to kind of get like an example of the type of humor in this movie. Like one scene I really enjoyed was there's like like a priest type figure who is overseeing the like the ceremony. And at the end of his ceremony, he goes out and he sees like this table that has like intricate tile on it, and he just like won't stop admiring it, and he like gets to a point where like the host family that are grieving are like volunteering to give him some tile so he can make his own table like this. So it's like kind of like this odd, like really funny, like subtle sense of humor, but it's like quite like really hit with me. So if you like kind of like the darkness or like the subversive qualities of like exploring death but like not taking it too seriously, I highly recommend this. It comes from a new HD transfer conducted by Criterion. There's some new interviews with the like main actors. There is like a retrospective piece on the director, and it looks really great, sounds really great, and it's one of the better films I've seen recently. So yeah, The Funeral, it's very good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I again, that was totally not on my radar, which is what I love about the show, because even like just outside of my titles, like I'm always like discovering some really cool stuff. So I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. So my next one is season 1 of Kin, and now this was a AMC Plus original film, and let me show you something really cool. Look at that. A shout out to Tia.
The first full quote from geekvibesnation.com.
And yeah, intense is certainly how I would describe this series. So I'm going to try to talk about it pretty briefly and broadly, because I don't want to give anything away, but yeah, it is one of those, I would say, is very much like a slow burn. Like that's something that seems to be how a lot of people describe this show, and I kind of can't think of a better way to also put it. It's like slow, but it's very thrilling. Like there was definitely some really edge of your seat moments. Yeah, I know you said you've seen it too. I mean, you would probably agree with that, where it's slow, but it's very engaging, and then it just really sucks you in.
Yeah, it escalates throughout the season. I really appreciate that. And I know you're probably going to get into it, but it stars like Charlie Cox, who people probably know best from the Daredevil series, but I know him like further back from like Boardwalk Empire and stuff around that era. So it's nice to see him. Like I love him as Daredevil, but just seeing him more in like a traditional role, and he's such like a commanding screen presence, especially opposite Aidan Gillen, who people probably know as Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. And then Kieran Hines is in it. Like there's a lot of great people just like acting their asses off, which is pretty great.
Yeah, the cast is fantastic, and again, as you say, everyone is just working so well together. Like again, I appreciate like how again conflict is so well set up and paid off, but it just keeps building and escalating. And yeah, like right out of the gate with like the AMC Plus series, like that is really a winner. So here is the inside, the discs, and again the back with our quote. Look at that. That is so, I was so excited. So that was from Tia's review from last August, when she reviewed it. So but definitely a really cool series. I'm really kind of anxious to see where it kind of goes from where it left off. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm so excited for people to catch up on this one, because if I wasn't actively looking for stuff for like this people on the site to review, I probably would have overlooked it. But then now that like I know it exists, I cannot wait for it to return. Yeah. My next title, a little bit of a left turn. It is the 1994 adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from Sir Kenneth Branagh, and who also stars in this. And yes, this is a newly released Arrow Video release, but it doesn't come with a slipcover, which kind of bummed me out. But what are you gonna do? But it's still a great release. It doesn't sink it by any means. But here's the interior. You got some postcards. No, you don't. Sorry, you have a booklet. I misspoke. But pretty thorough booklet. So as usual from Arrow. And yes, you have double-sided artwork. So here you can see a little bit here if you want a little different flavor to your artwork. So yeah, I had actually never seen this movie before. I had it in a Blu-ray 2-pack with the Francis Ford Coppola version of Dracula, but I have not seen either yet. But I was glad to finally sit down with this and see it in like new 4K Dolby Vision because it looked great. It's originally a Sony movie, so they handled the transfer, and Sony transfers are some of my favorite 4K transfers because they take such care and they rarely miss. And this is no different. And then Arrow Video encodes it onto the disc impeccably, so no objections on that front. The movie itself, it's pretty entertaining. Like, of course, it's radically different from the old version of Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, but this there's like a featurette on here that talks about how the differences and similarities to the original source material and how this is kind of more faithful than some of the previous movies that we've gotten over the years. But this Branagh brings like kind of almost like a Victorian Gothic like romance to it. Like there's an undercurrent of like Gothic melancholy, which while you do get that in the original, it's kind of like hyped up and like it's more like posh and like kind of regal than like a lot of Frankenstein tales. It is a little bit overlong in my opinion. It's like a little over 2 hours long, and they probably could have reduced that, but there's some really kind of gnarly shots within this one. Like Robert De Niro plays Frankenstein's monster, and just like his like kind of birthing scene when he's being created, like there's all kinds of goo all over him and he's like naked and like all like disfigured and stuff. So it's like there's some really grotesque elements within like this beautiful time period, and then like all the people are like suffering from like cholera, and it's like just nastiness. Like even John Cleese makes an appearance, and I like wouldn't have recognized him if it wasn't for his voice. It's wild. And then also there's Helena Bonham Carter plays Branagh's love interest in this, and there's like it goes to some interesting places. So while this isn't my like absolute favorite version of Frankenstein, it's a really good take on the story for sure, and it's like very visually beautiful, and it's recommended for anyone who hasn't seen it who's like a fan of like kind of Gothic horror romances. And this release, and aside to looking and sounding really great, it has like a couple of audio commentaries. It has interviews with like some of the makeup people and costume people and production design. And just overall, it's a really solid release. Like whenever I first saw it announced by Arrow Video, I was like, oh, that seems kind of like different for them. But like once I saw it, I was like, oh, this is kind of within like the genre elements that I expect from them. So yeah, it's a really good movie.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like it has gooey nudity. How
That's all you want.
where else could you go wrong?
Yeah.
So speaking of 4K releases, see how seamless that was. This is the latest Paramount Presents and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and really beautiful. So first of all, you have their standard how they do their packaging. And so this is really special because this is a 4K and Blu-ray combo. And this is their Paramount Presents first I was going to say Paramount's first 4K, but that's certainly not true. But yeah, so there is both the discs. Again, if you haven't upgraded to 4K, it's got a Blu-ray in there with all the same features, so it's got you covered. When you pop the discs out, you'll see like there's a back where it has like a quote there, and really nice. I mean, really amazing presentation. I can't speak highly enough of what Paramount does with like their older titles. And I had never seen this movie before, which is wild because it is so acclaimed. I am a huge Jimmy Stewart fan. I think he's one of my favorite classic actors. And the movie is really, really amazing. It's like epic. It's one of these movies that is so well acted and written that you just get completely like sucked into the narrative. And like Stewart gives maybe one of his best performances. John Wayne is in it. What's kind of funny is there's like that old like stereotype about like Wayne saying pilgrim. I think they get it from this movie because he says pilgrim like I honestly lost track. Like it could be a drinking game, but
Would
also
you have blacked out?
But also disclaimer, do not do that because he says it a lot.
Yeah.
It's like every other word he says is pilgrim, and I live for it. So yeah, it has a slew of new features. So I say slew, but it has a new filmmaker focus, and that's pretty awesome. So it's just Leonard Maltin kind of talking about the film. Paramount Presents does a lot of like the filmmaker focus. If they can't, obviously they couldn't get the director or anybody in this film because it's was 62. So, but who better to get than Leonard Maltin, right? So, but what's awesome is this has some archival commentary tracks from like the actual filmmakers, and it's pretty amazing. So this is a stacked release. This looks incredible. Just like you were saying about how Sony really takes care of their old films, I would definitely say Paramount does an amazing job as well. It's black and white, but with the 4K, it was a little bit grain heavy, but that doesn't bother me. This is like a film that is like 50 plus years old at this point. But it looks fantastic. It has a really crisp, clean look. The black and white has a really good contrast where it's not washed out. Like sometimes you get that, or it's not too like blurry or like soft looking. It just has a really nice balance. The cinematography is fantastic. So, if you have slept on this release or you only own it on maybe DVD or something, like upgrade, even if you don't have 4K and you think you might get it eventually. This does have the Blu-ray. Fantastic. Like it's easily kind of like would make my short list of like one of my favorite releases this year.
Yeah, I was excited just when it was announced, just to know that Paramount was actually using the 4K scans that they are doing for their Presents line on a 4K disc finally. And I'm just like, thank you. I hope this is a sign of like things to come, and hopefully they'll go back and revisit some of the ones they put out only on Blu-ray, because there's a lot of those where I'm just like, oh, I want to see these on actual 4K finally. So I hope that this sells well enough. It'll signal to Paramount that they need to keep giving us 4K discs with these 4K transfers, because I love the Presents line and I want that to continue.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people vote with their dollars. If that's something you want to see, buy it. Support classic movies like this, and we'll get more beautiful 4K releases. I know, just talking to people that have restored films, in like even just Blu-ray, the threshold is so high with film elements have to be a certain standard. So 4K has to be even higher than that. So
Yeah.
it's to sum up, it's time consuming and it's very expensive. So but the end result is really spectacular. So buy it, support it. Yes. I want to see more,
Absolutely. Going to another Paramount title, but not being released by Paramount. It was originally distributed by Paramount, but Shout Factory is helping us out with this new documentary, 25th anniversary release of Trekkies on Blu-ray, the 1997 documentary. It's not directed by, but it's hosted by Denise Crosby, who played Tasha Yar on Next Generation. And I had always heard about this movie, but I had not had a chance to see it. And I actually really enjoyed it. I am kind of like a middling Star Trek fan. I haven't seen all of like Deep Space Nine and Next Gen and stuff, but I've seen a lot of the movies and like a good number of the shows. So I'm like squarely in the middle. Like, I really like Star Trek. I'm just not like obsessive, but I'm looking to get caught up. But what I like about this release is that, or this film at least, is that it treats the fans with respect, but it's not a love letter. It kind of shows them as they are, and you can kind of make judgments on whether you think they're like sometimes occasionally a little ridiculous, but like it's done with love. It's not like making fun of these people, which is great. Especially at this time, like documentaries weren't as prevalent as they are now. So you get to see this actor going around to all of her co-stars and stars of kind of like older movies like Leonard Nimoy and like Brent Spiner's on here. They didn't get William Shatner. He did his own like kind of documentary series called The Captains, which also was released by Shout Factory that I reviewed a couple of years ago, and it's also recommended. But there's like a ton of Star Trek cast telling their experiences, interacting with the fans, and also some of the fans sharing why they're so like enamored with Star Trek and why it's such a big part of their life. So you get to see them like making their own costumes and like taking you to like there's like a dentist who takes you to his office and it's like all Star Trek themed, and like there's some like kind of cringeworthy moments where he like one of the receptionists says basically she was like forced to like give into the like Star Trek theme. Like she didn't want to wear the costume, but she didn't want to be fired either. So it's just kind of like, oh boy. And there's also some stories told on here where you see how this fandom, like you got to understand how much responsibility these performers have on them, because there's like a interview that one of the performers shares, and while he views it as a fond memory, I was like, oh, that's a lot of pressure on him, where there's like a woman who was like suicidal and like wrote to him, and he like called her up, and like over like a series of years he like kept up with her to make sure she was like on a better path until she got like, it's like at the end there's like a heartwarming story, but just to know that like this person unloaded on this actor and like put so much on their plate, it's just kind of like, it's heavy. So it's a really fascinating documentary. I really loved it. This release is really great. It's old documentary footage, so while it's not like pristine, it's really nice high definition transfer. It's like really clean for the most part. There's not like a lot of damage or anything. The soundtrack is as good as the kind of surrounding areas will allow. It's not like hollow or anything. It all comes through clearly. And there's a new conversation, like a retrospective piece with the director and Denise Crosby, where they're reflecting on the making of the movie, along with like the theatrical trailer and stuff. So it's not like packed with releases, but the one like new thing that they have is really like in depth, and like really fans will want to like check this out. So if you're a Star Trek fan or just a fan of like documentaries that show you like a slice of life that you're not necessarily a fan of, like aware of, Trekkies is really interesting, and I would recommend it to anyone, honestly.
That sounds awesome. So I feel like you should have done that in the like Kirkisms, like there's something on the wing of the plane. You know, you needed to.
This video, if I would have taken his dramatic pauses, probably would have been like 4.5 hours long. I've got stuff to do today. I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, but no, yeah, that's so funny. You were saying about how it's something that has always been on your radar. That's the same with me. I've heard about it. I've heard it was really good. This is definitely a good excuse to actually like pull the trigger and get this.
Yes.
So my second and final exploration into Francis the Talking Mule.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
The end of this epic saga, this 7-film deep dive. And yeah, wow. I have thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
I'll keep it brief. Okay, the movies that I finished with was Francis Takes the Big Town. This is really kind of where they start really hammering home these sort of like, is the lead character like mentally ill? So he plays a like reporter, and Francis is actually like helping him like get all these scoops. And it's a little like interesting how they play up the mental health issue as like a punchline. Like there's like, so it's interesting, like Francis is essentially like the protagonist, although he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And he's always like kind of like messing with people. So like in this one, he like psychologically breaks down a chief of staff at a mental hospital for, you know, for laughs.
Yeah, for the lulz.
Yeah, but that I have to say that is probably one of the better films in the series. I liked it. I also really enjoyed the next one, which is Francis Joins the W.A.C.s, which I had to look up, which is the Women's Army Corps. Again, the comedy writing actually seemed a little bit better in this one. It's kind of awesome because this has Julie Adams, who everybody kind of remembers for Creature from the Black Lagoon. She was such a sweet person. I actually got to meet her a few times. And then we get back into some more military themed movies, which is Francis Joins the Navy, which I didn't think was really that good. It's a bit forgettable. It has a very young Clint Eastwood in a small role, which I thought was interesting.
All right.
And then the final one is Francis in a Haunted House, which I have to say was the one I was sort of looking forward to the most, although it actually ended up being the one that I was kind of least jazzed about. And I'll explain. So throughout these films, Donald O'Connor is the lead, and they swap him out for Mickey Rooney. I believe he's supposed to be playing a different character, but he is essentially playing like his mannerisms. Because I'm basically like an expert on these movies now.
Of course, yeah.
After marathoning them, but
Yeah.
yeah. So my final thoughts on this series is what I think is really engaging about these films is it's has a very endearing premise. It's almost so absurd that it borderlines on like charming and quaint. That like something so like thin could be stretched out into 7 feature-length films, like one kind of premise. But when they replaced the lead actor, it made me really realize that like, you know, Donald O'Connor is probably a big part of why this series ran so long. Like he is so lovable. Like he is such a endearing, engaging character. And you do root for him. And if I'm being kind of honest, I'm not a big Mickey Rooney fan. So them swapping him out, it was like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun series. Like they put a lot of thought and effort into restoring these. They aren't they're all in like 2K. And you know, overall they look great. I would say that they're not pristine. I mean, they're from the 50s, you know, film elements do vary. But as you can see, there's a lot of commentary tracks, which I think is one of my favorite features. And you know, they definitely help give a lot of like historical context behind you know, not only the series, but it being sort of like enveloped in the like wartime America. And you know, it adds some extra layers and context, which I think helps appreciate the movies a little bit more. Again, they're not deep, obviously, but I thought they were fun. Like, you know, I had to, you know, spread these out because after a while I felt like I was losing my grip on sanity. But have you finished these yet?
No, I was gonna add 2 things that have developed since we last spoke about Francis. I have not been able to watch all of these. I'm just finished the 3rd one. So where you left off last week is where I'm at. One thing I have watched in the meantime is Singing in the Rain, and I wasn't really aware of Donald O'Connor, but I was like, oh, he's the one from Francis, and I was like, that's fun. So now I'm like having all these titles at the same time is really interesting. The second thing I wanted to note, which I didn't get to mention last week, that kind of like I like this series and it makes me laugh, but it also makes me uncomfortable, is just whenever you see the wires that are kind of like making Francis's like mouth move, and it just brings up images of like animal cruelty into my head, and I'm just like, oh, I wish they didn't have to like go to those means to try to get him to talk. So like that kind of like always ruins it a little bit for me whenever you see like his mouth just kind of like, oh, so it's like, ugh. But if you kind of just put that out of your mind, you can enjoy it more. But I'm still interested in finishing the set. It's just like every time that happens, I'm just like, dang. I rather them just kind of like, whenever they have the shots of him from behind and he's speaking and they don't have to like make his mouth actually move, I appreciate that kind of filmmaking more.
Yeah, and you know, as always, I try to do a lot of like homework to give you all like some interesting information. And I was trying to see if there was any correlation between the Francis series and Mr. Ed. And interestingly enough, so Francis the Talking Mule is based on a novel, believe it or not. And Mr. Ed is based on a series of short stories. So I guess one maybe didn't really necessarily inspire the other, since they're kind of based on their own separate IPs at the time. It is so interesting that we have like 2 sort of series with talking like animals like that, you know, like horse and mule. But yeah, it was really interesting. Again, there are some dated elements, you know, of course, with the the WAC one, it was like the gender politics are probably what you expect for like the 1950s. So keep that in mind. But yeah, honestly, it was fun. I think it was maybe because I marathoned them so hard, and a lot of times I watch stuff twice because of the commentary tracks.
Yeah.
So I've watched these all twice now. So yeah, it was something, but they're fun. And again, I have to give Kino Studio Classics huge props for just a really beautiful presentation overall. Like that is nice. So I can definitely see this being nostalgic for people, and I think maybe if it had figured in my childhood or something, I probably would have maybe been more into them, but I'm sure, there are some people out there like that. So this is a thing that is available now, and check it out.
Awesome. Once again, pivoting to a different direction, going back to Arrow Video, and this time I am going to talk about One-Armed Boxer. And we have been covering a lot of Shaw Brothers stuff in recent months, but this is actually from the competing studio that developed Golden Harvest. And yeah, this has a reversible cover art that I've already reversed, so you can see this here. It's pretty nice. And it also has a pretty nice booklet. So here, once again, they do a nice job. So I like this one pretty well. Not sure if I showed this off enough, but it's not my absolute favorite martial arts film I've seen recently. So basically what this film is there's a man who is kind of like one of the best fighters to come out of his kind of school. And he kind of comes face to face with this band of like heathens who are like going to take out pretty much everyone in his kind of like camp, which is not like an original premise. It's like the premise of like 80 martial arts films. But in this one, the one-armed boxer, he originally has two arms, and of course he gets his one arm chopped right the hell on off, would be like a karate chop. And then he kind of gets himself nursed back to health, and then kind of comes to like seek vengeance, and it kind of goes how you expect it to go. So it's not like intensely creative plot wise. It does have some really good fight scenes. It's not overly long. I didn't dislike this movie by any means. It's just there are a lot of, I think, better executed movies in some of the like the Shaw scope set, that seeing this kind of soon after, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good, but it's not like amazing to me. So Arrow did a good job with this release. It comes from a new 2K restoration provided by Fortune Star and like overseen by Arrow Video. It looks really nice. There's of course a few moments that kind of look a little bit softer, probably due to the source elements, but overall looks good. One thing I want to point out, I've never seen this movie before. The audio did not sound great. I think this may be probably an issue with like the initial recording, and I haven't read through all of the booklets, so they may have spoken about this, but there were some scenes where they'd be like kind of like in a restaurant setting, and you would hear the two characters talking, but then you would also hear like everyone else in the place talking as if you were in a restaurant, and you could like hear like conversations that were happening at the next table. And I was like, this mix is crazy. So like it was like very busy. So I'm not sure if that's like, it's probably an issue with how it was recorded, but the mix just sounded really wild to me. So I'll just leave it at that. other than that, the disc is great, and I don't think it's a problem with Arrow's presentation. It has new like audio commentaries. It has a retrospective on the star Wong Yu. It has some like trailers. It has an alternate English dub if you want to like revisit the old like weird dubs of like mouths not matching back like whenever you used to catch this like when you were younger on cable. So yeah, overall I enjoyed the movie. It's just like whenever you compare it to the Shawscope set, it's just not as great. This dude right here who kind of looks like a werewolf, he was very interesting, like, and he played like a malevolent figure who every time he came on screen I was a little bit more entertained. So
Nice.
it's a fine movie, I would say.
It is fine. That is our benchmark here.
It got me through an hour and a half.
There you go. So my next title is actually really interesting for a couple reasons that I'll get into, but it is Kino Lorber's Mamba. So there is in the back with the extras. This is a really fascinating film for a couple of different reasons. So this was considered lost, if not partially lost. It has been lovingly restored. I believe it was the with the UCLA Foundation. And so this is a very early Technicolor film, like full-length Technicolor film. So actually, it's actually billed as like the first action romance adventure film that's like fully in color. Yeah, that's really fascinating. There's a whole kind of story about where this was found, the original film elements. I am hoping to actually interview the person responsible for bringing this lost film to market, which I think is so cool. So the caveat here is it has a lot of racist imagery, which is it's so much so that there is a disclaimer that Kino rightfully decided to kind of talk about like, yeah, this is awful and wrong, but also, this is being preserved as a part of film history. And unfortunately, you kind of have to take some like that negative also. And I think it's kind of important to like not forget that we used to make films like this, because we shouldn't ever do it again. That out of the way, it's a pretty fun film. It is a pretty standard action adventure film. There's romance. It's got a lot going on. There's some interesting moving pieces. I thought it was really entertaining. So this is from 1930, so it's a very early like talkie. It's not very long. It's 74 minutes. It's such a breezy watch, but it has the other kind of thing that's cool about it is it has a commentary by Brian Trenchard Smith, which our longtime viewers will know that Andre and I recently sat down and talked to him. So I will also link that in the description if you want to check that out. He was amazing, and they actually have his movie Stunt Rock coming out from Kino. So that's also really cool. So yeah, his commentary is great. He is so well informed. It has an interview with the gentleman that was responsible for restoring the film, which again, I will hopefully be interviewing soon. But yeah, really fantastic release. And I love how Kino is doing such a fantastic job of like unearthing these really important obscure titles and making them look great. Now, the even though it's restored, it's pretty rough, but when you consider that this was almost completely gone. Like the film elements were almost so bad that they, you know, I think they did a really great job of what they had to work with. So, you know, don't go in expecting like a pristine 4K master, but it is, obviously I've never seen this film on other home video, but I can probably safely say this is the best it's ever looked. So yeah, and I'm always kind of fascinated with like early Technicolor films. Like last week with The Dancing Pirate, that was another early Technicolor film. So yeah, it's great.
Nice. Getting into my next release, my last release from Arrow this week, I'm going to show off this package a little bit first, and I'm going to get into kind of the technical stuff because this is a nice package. It is the Arrow video release of Wild Things on 4K Ultra HD. And yes, this is a nice chipboard box. And here, and as per usual, I take off the J card and store it in here, but I can show that off as well. So here is the original back with like all the special features and technical details. It wraps around, and it comes with a nice book. It's pretty thick and substantial. It has lots of several essays in here, and yeah, so there's like two pretty substantial essays in here. They're like 20 to 30 pages long. It comes with a double-sided poster that I'll unfold here. You have the new artwork and the original theatrical kind of one sheet. And finally, we have the actual disc case itself, which features slightly a variant of the artwork here, a different color scheme, and then double-sided artwork, which is just the one sheet again. And this release comes with a series of postcards that I will show you real quick. So here's the back, and here's like the front of several of these. And finally, the disc art is pretty much the same as the cover. So yeah, my history with this movie, I came of age whenever this film was released. I was pretty young, and my earliest memories of this movie is that my mom said that I could not see this when I was like a 10-year-old, which she had good reason. But hey, I'm older now, Mom, and I've watched the movie. She watches this show, so like I'm telling her now, I watched it. This movie, I like, it's iconic because of like all of the like steaminess and tawdriness and like the threesomes and stuff and like the lesbian pool scene. But it was nice to finally see things in context and not just know like the social like stuff that has permeated the consciousness. This story, it's like a neo-noir, and it's very trashy. Like, it's a very trashy movie, but I also found myself very entertained. I can see the flaws in it, but at the same time I was very entertained. Matt Dillon plays a guidance counselor who gets accused of rape by two of his students, and Kevin Bacon plays a cop who's kind of investigating. And it has some like interesting twists and turns, and I don't want to give stuff away, even though like Culture has probably given away some of the moments. I don't want to give away all of like the beat for beat plots, because there's some twists and turns that I was still like, oh, okay, that's interesting. There's actually like a solid mystery at the core of this thing. I think everyone does a really great job. At first, I was a little bit disappointed with Neve Campbell's role in this movie, but on reflection, once I got to the end of the movie, I really appreciated what she got to do in the movie. Denise Richards, she's like the prototypical like eye candy of that time, and it's unfortunate that like her role is basically reduced to that, but she does have some like nice one-liners and everything. It's a very, like I said, a very trashy movie. It's like very reductive to women, but also if you just kind of like push aside, like what type of the movie this is, it's very entertaining. And the transfer, this is once again a transfer completed by Sony. It's in Dolby Vision and encoded by Arrow, and it looks fantastic. Like I wanted to compare this to another movie that I really like, that I probably like a little bit more, called The Hot Spot with Don Johnson and Jennifer Connelly. This is kind of like in that realm, but while that is like kind of deserty hot, this is swampy hot, and like it's like really wet all the time, which like we want kind of like a pulpy noir. And the colors really radiate off the screen, and the soundtrack, it's a 5.1 soundtrack, along with there's like a 2.0 track also included. They both sound really great. There's both the unrated and rated cut, newly remastered in 4K from the original camera negative. I watched the unrated cut because I figured just might as well go for it. And it's very entertaining, and it actually has I kind of read up on it, and it has like a lot of like plot stuff added to the end, which I found interesting, wasn't in the original theatrical cut. But overall, this is a really good release. As far as like new content, there's not a ton. There's a new audio commentary from the director. There's a new like 27-minute piece, like interview with the director, which is really cool. And they actually got Denise Richards back for like another 16-minute new interview where she reflects back on her role in this, which obviously she has the most iconic scenes in this. And there's some like vintage featurettes and everything within this one. It's a really solid package, and like this is one I'd never really expected to see in 4K, but now that I've seen it in 4K, I probably wouldn't want to see it any other way. So if you're a fan of the movie, they really did it justice with this release, and I would like highly recommend it. And like I said, this is beautiful packaging. Arrow did a really good job. I'm glad they're working more with Sony so they can like get some of these like gems released in like 4K and or like with substantial special features.
Sounds good. Yeah, so my next one is definitely way more opposite than that, and that is Outside the Law.
Okay.
And so this is another film that I had not really even heard of, but I'm glad I actually checked it out. It's actually a pretty sweeping epic. It's a kind of a wartime film, but it's really interesting that you talk about noir, because this film's very much partly a war film, partly a film noir, and fold in like classic gangster films, and you kind of get like this movie.
Nice.
So it has some really nice features. And that's the inside, nothing reversible. Yeah, so I was like pretty pleased with just overall how this movie looked. It is not the most colorful film, like it's very sort of somber-ish, but that kind of fits the tone. But like they use a lot of like outdoor locations that look really lush and amazing, and 1080p. It's such a great film too. It's pretty long. It's over 2 hours. It's it's a little daunting at first, but it's something that like really like hooked me and engaged me. It's like war, but like it's like filtered through like a portrait of brothers, and like that kind of brings it into like where it is engaging and relatable. Again, something that wasn't necessarily like on my radar, but I'm really happy I checked it out, and I would definitely watch it again.
That's interesting that you talk about a Cohen Films release because I have one coming up now too. And I will preface this by saying, like, people probably won't love this as much as I do, but I actually really enjoyed this movie. And that is My Afternoons with Marguerite, starring Gerard Depardieu and Giselle Casadesus. This is really like, whenever you're just needing something nice to watch, I just really enjoyed this one. It's a French film from 2010, and it stars Depardieu as a kind of an illiterate man who you see throughout the movie in flashbacks that he is kind of treated very poorly throughout his life. He's like kind of not necessarily physically abused, but like kind of abused by like his teachers and his mother. Like, you see the teacher like hurling insults at him and calling him like dumb and like an idiot in class, and you just see him kind of like shut down, and he was never able to really develop. And it kind of happens the same with his mom, just calling him an idiot all the time. So he just never really got to learn much so he's kind of just like a common working man until one day he goes to like his favorite spot in the park where he's like named all the pigeons and stuff, and he likes to feed them. And he meets this older woman named Marguerite, and he strikes up like an unlikely friendship with her. And it's a very heartwarming movie where you just see him start coming to the park to meet her every week. And it's a love story, but it's not like romantic love. It's like a nice friendship love. And you see him start to kind of learn from her. Like she's like teaching him, but not like formally. It's just like he's learning from her because he doesn't know how to, like I said, he doesn't know how to read. So she like reads him passages, and he starts thinking about the world in different ways. And it's just like a really heartwarming movie it's just like kind of what I needed at that time. So it's just like, if you like that kind of premise of just like a friendship between like a middle-aged man and like an older woman, and just like how that enriches both of their lives, it's just a really sweet movie. It's not like, it has like a trailer and pretty much nothing else. The high definition transfer is like great. It sounds great. Like, it's not like it's a very subdued movie. So it's not like, you don't need like crazy 5.1 sound, but like it sounds full and looks great. And it just does the heart good if that's what you're in the mood for. It's not like high art, but it's just nice.
Nice. Yeah, I saw a trailer for that one when I was watching another Kino Cohen film, and looked pretty interesting. So my last one is also from Kino, and this is Kino Studio Classics, and that is Violent City. And there's
More Bronson.
Yep, got another Bronson. I know last week I did Breakout, which was really good. So slipcover, and has reversible artwork, which that brings me to what's kind of awesome, and what if you're thinking about this release would be something that you'd want to consider, and that is that it is a 2-disc, and it also has the Violent City, but it also has the recut of the family. Now,
oh, cool.
So if you're wondering what that means exactly, so Violent City and the family is basically like a recut version of the same film. So as you can see, like the runtime is different, and I actually kind of think that I sort of like the little bit more trimmed up version of it better, but I think both cuts are really good. The film itself isn't exactly groundbreaking, but it has a lot of really great action. Bronson is, of course, amazing as always. It is so fast paced. Like, there is just a ton of action. Like, right out of the gate, you have like a action scene, and it's basically breakneck from that point on. It almost kind of reminded me of like a Canon film, if you dig like the Canon style action movies. Then I feel like you would definitely really enjoy this one. So if this is something that's not necessarily like on your radar, I would highly recommend it. And again, I did also review Breakout, which was another Bronson film that I can also link in the description if you're interested in. So there's another look at that. And yeah, just a good time. You know, I am all for some like Bronson films. You know, I have to watch something super flamboyant afterwards to kind of balance it out, but it's all good. You know, but yeah, I highly recommend it.
Can I ask a question? On that cover art, was that a ghost behind him?
I mean, it looks like it. It's kind of disappointing that it's not like Telly Savalas ghost. Yeah, that is interesting. I don't. Yeah.
Because that probably would have got me to buy it. That probably would have sold
if it
it
was
for
also a supernatural film. I mean, it would be kind of fun to have like a Bronson action movie, and then it's like, oh, it's a haunted house movie now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I had to ask because it looked just like a ghost. I was like, that's not the movie I thought this was, but I'll ask.
Yeah, no, it would be very remiss in not mentioning it also had a spooky Telly Savalas ghost in it.
Yeah, that would be bullet point number 1 to talk about.
Right. So the cool thing is though, there is a actor currently working that looks so much like Charles Bronson. And forgive me, I can't think of his name, but you know, there is this whole like subsection of like Bronson exploitation films that this guy's doing. There was something kind of similar with like a Bruce Lee lookalike that would make films. And I'm also spacing on his name because old age. But so listen, but what I'm saying is they could always make a movie with this Bronson lookalike and like make it like a action haunted house movie.
This might be the first GVN production. Like maybe we can like we'll workshop this offline.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah. No one steal that idea, okay? It's gold. My last title, this one really surprised me. Okay, so this is Roger and Hammerstein's Flower Drum Song from Kino Classics. And I will fully admit, I didn't know anything about this besides it was Rodgers and Hammerstein. And I'm like, I'll check it out because I really like The Sound of Music. That one was one that I was kind of late to, but once I did watch Sound of Music, I'm like, oh, I get the hype. Okay, this is actually pretty good. So Flower Drum Song. So one thing I want to note about this film, it was made in 1961. And it is one of the first like major studio motion pictures to feature pretty much an almost entirely Asian American cast. And it did not happen again for a major studio for over 30 years until the Joy Luck Club in the 90s, which kind of blew my mind. I read this on Wikipedia, so if I'm wrong, it's Wikipedia's fault. But that's still like, I was watching this, like when I was watching this, I was like, it seems strange, but like in a good way. I was like, why does this feel strange? I'm like, oh, everyone, like pretty much everyone on screen is Asian American. And you just didn't really see this at this time. And what even better is like, while by no means perfect, like, don't get me wrong, but like they treated them like with respect and they didn't like make them caricatures, and like they appreciated like kind of the culture that they were representing. It's about like a woman who travels from China to San Francisco to be like for an arranged marriage. But whenever she arrives, the man that she is planning on like marrying who really didn't think she was ever going to come over. He's like already kind of involved with someone, and she ends up staying at the house of this other like kind of family friend, and she starts falling in love with kind of this kind of like this up and coming kind of playboy type character who's not really into like tradition, and he kind of they kind of help one another. Like she kind of becomes acclimated more to the American ways. He kind of becomes like softened to the ideas of like his father, who wants him to marry in a traditional manner. And this is all a musical. It's like a 2 hours and 13-minute musical. So it's not even as long as certain musicals can be. And so yeah, there are some like cultural things that probably haven't aged as well. And I'm obviously not an Asian American, so can only judge so much like what is right or wrong. But from my perspective, like compared to a lot of movies in the past, they really did a good job of handling this with respect, considering it's a musical from Rodgers and Hammerstein, who are not Asian American, and it's directed by a German filmmaker. They still, I think the cast alone, like they kind of helped shape this movie into something that they could be proud of. And I think especially for the early 60s, it's a huge step forward in representation and it's actually like not just representation. I don't want to like boil this down to like, this is important because of this thing. It's very entertaining. Like in terms of musicals, it's one of like the more entertaining musicals I've seen recently. Warner Archive has obviously gotten me very trained to like in the musical mind in recent years, but this one was really entertaining. It has a lot of great music numbers. The dancing's great. This transfer, it comes from a new 2K transfer, and it looks pretty spectacular. There's just a handful of moments, but like one moment in particular that stood out there was like a downturn in quality, but it's perfectly understandable why. Because there's a sequence where there's a woman singing to herself in the mirror, but then there's like some optical effects where there's like 3 of her like on like in each of the mirrors, and she's like each of them are like singing different things. So it's like a cool optical effect where like she had to like sing like 3 different times and harmonize with herself. But obviously because of like the technology of the time and layering all those optical shots, it doesn't look as crisp and clear as like the rest of the movie. But like given the limitations of the filmmaking style, this release looks spectacular to my eyes, and it sounds great. It's got a slew of special features. It's got it's got a commentary with Nancy Kwan and historian Nick Redman. It has a lot of special features, like more special features than a lot of like Kino Classics movies get. Sometimes you'll just get a commentary and like a bunch of trailers. There's actually a lot of featurettes on here. So if you're just a fan of like Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, obviously it has great music. But like even if you're not a traditional fan of musicals, I think this is one really worth checking out because it's very entertaining. So yeah, Flower Drum Song, it's a really good movie.
Now, this is actually one that I had heard of before because there is a YouTuber, she's amazing, and I'll link the video in the description, but she did a deep dive on the lead actress that's in this, and they
cool.
talk about the film and its historical context within film. She does amazing YouTube videos. It's called Be Kind Rewind. She focuses on females and like acting, and she does a lot of like really great sort of like historical context. Like she does a lot of like Oscar stuff, which I think is pretty fascinating. And I'm like just totally obsessed with her videos. But yeah,
awesome. Yes, I'll have to watch that for sure.
She is great. She doesn't post as much, like maybe like once every 3 or 4 weeks, but it's like such a treat when she does. So it's like pretty great. So with that, I guess we are wrapped. But if you want to just tell the good folks about the giveaway one more time.
Yes, so once again, the complete seasons 1 through 5 of Rick and Morty from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. That all you have to do to win this is like you made it this far. Just tell us which release we talked about. You're like, I might have to check that out. Which one are you most excited about? That's all you got to do. While you're there, just give us a like. But yeah, we'll put a date. We'll choose the winner in the description. I have to figure out when exactly I want to choose the winner. But yes, so please just support this video, and this could be yours. This could be yours.
Yeah, great. And as always, thank you all for hanging out with us. And definitely consider like and subscribing to the channel, because we're putting out some really awesome stuff in the future, including a all horror movie edition that's going to be a nice bonus video addict, so you don't want to miss that. So until next time.